I remember I had a manager who looked at me and said to me that you're never going to make it. You're never going to get to a leader role because you don't look like a leader. You don't talk like a leader. You've got a little bit of an accent. So you're never going to make it. When people tell me I can't do something, it gets me going. And that's what motivated me to try to look at leadership.
So when Aji Bawo joined Tesco 15 years ago, she was one of just 4 women in the technology department and the only woman of colour. But Tesco was not an outlier. This was pretty much the status quo at that time. But despite being written off by her manager at that time in terms of her leadership credentials, through sheer determination and a lot of talent, Aji has excelled within the organisation and has been instrumental in helping create a meritocratic, ethnically diverse and gender diverse culture at Tesco, particularly within the technology function. Aji speaks so passionately. I think you will see why she is such an inspiration to many in Tesco and beyond, including, of course, Naamua Dodoo, a very talented graduate who joined Tesco just 2 years ago and hopes to follow a similar path. This episode is an absolute gem. We have not created too many episodes involving 2 guests, so I was a little nervous about recording this one. However, these ladies were very easy to interview, and it really inspired me to the point that I actually feel educated and enlightened as a result of this conversation. In this interview, we explore embracing failure and believing in yourself, how AI is reshaping the roles and responsibilities of graduate hires, the capability gap between university education and industry, how Tesco is leading the charge with innovative tech initiatives like Get Go stores, the importance of diversity in tech, and much, much more. This one is a brilliant episode. I'm so glad we did it. Very inspiring, but we covered some really important topics too. This is Aji Bawo and Naamua Dodoo. Naamua and Aji, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast. This is a very special episode and one I've been very much looking forward to. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Naamua, you're obviously a graduate who has joined Tesco's not too long ago. Aji, you've obviously been manager within Tesco, and I think we're going to talk a lot more about graduate recruitment, the impact on graduate recruitment in terms of technology innovation, and how the graduate recruitment is evolving over the next, who we see it evolving over the next couple of years. But before we unpack all that, can we just do a little introduction so the listeners can get an understanding of your background and just learn a little bit more about you, really?
So I'm Naamua. I am a graduate software engineer and I joined Tesco in September 2022. My lead up into joining Tesco, I've been interested in going into the sort of like tech industry for quite a while, studying computer science at GCSE, at A-level, and then I did a Bachelor of Computer Science degree at the University of Birmingham. Here I am at Tesco, so it's almost been 2 years. Yes, I'm on a rotational graduate scheme, specifically focusing on software engineering. So I've jumped through, I think now I'm in my 4th team, and I started off in the online domain, then moved to infrastructure, and I'm now in supply chain.
Can you just tell the listeners what you mean by rotational and what specifically that means within Tesco?
So when you have graduate schemes, sometimes they're rotational in the sense that you can do placements in various teams. So at Tesco Technology, when you're a software engineering graduate, you get to do a placement of 6 to 9 months.
Sure.
Whereas there are some alternative graduate schemes. We don't have them at Tesco, but sometimes you're in a team and it's just for the full duration of your graduate scheme.
I understand. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, well, that's fantastic though, isn't it? Because you get a taste for various functions and you can really find what sort of you're more drawn towards, I suppose. So no, that's really, really interesting. Brilliant. Thanks, Naamua. Do you want to go next, Aji?
Of course. So I'm Aji Bawo. I am a head of product in Tesco Technology. I lead a team of product managers who build software and systems. So prior to joining Tesco, I did join as a grad as well, many moons ago. And I also studied computer science in university. So I did a bachelor's in computer science at Middlesex University, and then I did a master's in advanced computing at King's College. And been here for ages.
Wow. That's fantastic. Can I ask you, Aji, how has Tesco changed from the company that you joined?
Massively. When I joined, I was one of about 4 women in technology.
Oh, wow.
And the only woman of color at the time. So this is a long time ago. And the culture was very different, very male dominated, very retail heavy, very commercial heavy. Everything in Tesco at that time was about deadlines, timelines, and
yeah, of course.
Massively different culture. And I'm really pleased to say I've seen it evolve over the years. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot more softer leaders. And I don't mean soft as in, people can get up with it, just softer in terms of wanting to cultivate the right culture, wanting to build people up, which was very different, to be honest, at the time that I joined. It was a little bit more ruthless, more retail heavy, more commercial specific. And it's a lot more, I think, especially in technology now, a lot more culture focused on people rather than things or tasks.
Yeah, that must be an incredible transformation to live through. And you've obviously been part of that transformation yourself, haven't you? So yeah, that's really interesting. So we're a technology and leadership podcast, guys, as you know. We always ask the guests this question. So I'm going to do two different sort of slants on this. So Aji, if we could start with you, what does good leadership mean to you?
So for me, good leadership means a leader who is very clear on a vision.
Yeah.
A leader who's very people-led. And I always talk about love-based leadership. Okay. And a lot of people think when I talk about love-based leadership that it's hugging and stuff. It's not. Let me just start by saying that. It's about caring for the people in your care. I think as a leader, you need to be really clear that you're there to serve.
Yes.
You're there to fulfill people's needs. You're not there to be dominant. You're not there to take control. You're there to have a clear vision, a clear strategy, and to serve people, leading with love, caring for the people that are within your care to deliver on the things that they need to deliver. And as part of that, very heavy on seeing people grow. I always worry when I see leaders that are not concerned about people's growth. And I think leaders, out of anything else, should be concerned about seeing the people in their care progress as you move on. Similarly, as you would if you were a parent, how you see your kids grow, how you see your kids learn, correcting them a little bit when you think they're going wrong. That for me is what love-based leadership is. And that's what leadership means to me.
Wow. That was a great answer. But specifically, this is a line I'm going to use. Okay, I'm going to steal this off you. Leading with love. I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah. But it's brilliant, not because it sounds good. It's brilliant because there's so much truth behind it in terms of the big part of it is empathy and just having your team's well-being
exactly.
as your priority. And I think that's in terms of development, in terms of just general well-being. So Naamua, I just want to ask you, obviously your career is just starting and I'm sure you're going to have but in terms of where you are right now and what you expect, because obviously over the next couple of years, you're in a formative period of your career. So what kind of leader do you want to work for? What kind of mentor are you looking for to support you to achieve your goals?
So I do agree with everything Aji said. I think because I'm at the start of my career, I see it more as I want someone who shows signs of empathy, someone who will listen to everyone, especially because coming in without having that industry experience, there's a lot that you don't know. So having a leader that can really understand and put themselves in your shoes and really guide you.
Yes.
I feel like those are good qualities because I know it can be difficult to try and think back and remember what it's like to be new and not understand all the concepts and acronyms.
Yeah.
Companies love acronyms. But I think I think a good leader is someone who can do that and really empathize and understand and explain things clearly to someone who hasn't got that background knowledge, that context, that experience.
Yes, absolutely. So a bit of a fun question, Naamua, but you must get asked by your family and maybe friends who are not so digitally savvy and probably have no idea what software engineering is, if it's anything like my family. Well, what do you tell them that you do for a living, just out of curiosity?
Well, I'd say, I guess to put it in simple terms, I write code to build applications that solve a problem. So I've always seen coding as a big puzzle, growing up and learning it through school. That was my way into tech. I know traditionally people can get into tech through video gaming or coding in their spare time. Because it's never been a hobby outside of work, it's always just been something through my curriculum or now my day-to-day.
Yeah.
And it is literally just solving a puzzle, really.
Yeah.
But through code.
Well, it is, isn't it? Yeah. Fixing bugs and a lot of software engineering is problem solving at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And expressing yourself through code, I suppose. But why tech, though? Where does that stem from? Why did you want to go in that direction?
When I was growing up, I wanted to be a Google Doodler, which isn't a job. But you know the little like sort of icons that you see on Google when it's like an anniversary or something,
Okay,
or
I
like
know.
the
Yeah.
little games or animations. I wanted to be the person that made those. And then my heart was broken when I was told that's probably not like a real career. But one thing that I did actually do kind of as a hobby was I was just experimenting through the Microsoft Suite, but specifically PowerPoint. So I used to make PowerPoint presentations where everything was like a cartoon. So getting all the little like shapes and things and then using the animation pane to coordinate it all. And then all you have to do is start the presentation, press the spacebar, and you've got a whole like cartoon of like the story of like maybe how fair trade works or the story of St. Valentine. I did one on the Cumbria floods. So I do it like a bit in my spare time, but also for like school projects and things.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like my logical brain ticking.
Yeah, sure.
Then there was that switch between going from ICT, so learning how to use like a computer, to computer science,
Yeah.
which is learning like the ins and outs of a computer system and a bit of programming. And that's when it clicked. And I was like, oh, okay, I like programming. And then ever since then, I just started taking like the respective courses, GCSE, A-level, and the degree to get where I am today.
Yeah, because that's a big step, isn't it? Just going from sort of typical ICT, like you say, into actual deep software engineering. What kind of languages did you typically learn then? And what kind of coding languages are you most proficient with now?
So the first programming language that I started using, there's a programming language called Scratch. So that's a drag and drop based programming language. I think these days it's taught in primary. But again, because we're making that switch from ICT to computing, a lot of students my age would have started around maybe year 7. Yeah, kind of doing that logical thinking through block-based programming. Then we transitioned to Python, and Python is also quite a popular language that's taught in schools like all across the country. Then when I joined university and I started my degree, I was introduced to Java. And Haskell and Agda and a bit of C. So a whole variety. But in my day-to-day right now, or actually during my graduate scheme, I've coded using JavaScript, React, Java, PowerShell. I think that might be it.
We noticed you did work experience through a program called Code Like a Girl. Is that right? Which was obviously set up to get more females into the sector, I suppose. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Was that quite an influential thing for you to go in this direction?
Yeah. So in school, we were advised to get work experience, and I didn't really know where to look. It's quite hard to find work experience in tech, or it's slowly improving, but it is quite difficult. So I found an organization called Next Tech Girls, and they focus on finding placements for students who are underrepresented in tech.
Yeah.
So they helped me get 3 placements, one of them being the #Code Like a Girl placement, which was run by Vodafone. And that was the moment when I was finally surrounded by so many other girls that like to code, just like me. So it was nice to know that I wasn't alone. So yeah, it definitely was an important moment in my journey.
So how did Tesco come along then?
I was looking for graduate schemes in the final year of my university degree. And I was applying to a range of companies, ideally looking for places that I'd be interested in, Tesco being one of them. But one of my fears was that I hadn't done an internship. I applied for internships during my second year and I was unfortunately unsuccessful. And a lot of the time it is useful to have that experience so that you can talk about in interviews or you can put it on your CV. Thankfully, I could put down my experience from those work experience placements instead. So yeah, I applied to various companies and then luckily I got Tesco, which is really nice. And I think the interesting thing is I don't know if I would be at Tesco if we were doing the 5-day a week kind of like in the office, if that was the structure. Because I'm from Croydon and head office is in Welwyn Garden City.
Yeah.
So my commute right now is 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I did think long and hard, would I be able to do this if I had to do 5 days a week?
Yeah.
And I think at the time I said, yeah, sure, why not? And there's definitely no regrets because it's a really nice company. I wanted to apply for a company where I knew there wouldn't be any pressure. I wouldn't need to constantly fight day after day after day to prove I deserve to be here. I know some Well, I know tech companies a lot of the time, especially the big ones, they can be quite competitive.
Oh, yes.
I personally am not competitive. So I wanted to, feel comfortable in my role. And working here at Tesco, I do feel comfortable. Like, I do feel valued. I feel like I'm part of a really cool team.
Fantastic. No, that's amazing. I think I just wanted to pick up on something there, though, in terms of clearly the pandemic and that whole lockdown situation. It did change the business world and the workplace dramatically, didn't it? And you said yourself, you may not even have joined Tesco because I'm guessing, Aji, pre-2020, Tesco was probably more of an office-based role for everyone, wasn't it? Especially within IT.
Yeah.
What were the most profound changes within Tesco, Aji, that sort of happened as a result of the pandemic and lockdown period?
To be honest, I think even though we were very office-based, Tesco's always been flexible. I always emphasize that point. Well, as the years has progressed, it's always been flexible. And by flexible, I mean I can log into work at 9:30 after I've done my school run, and I can leave at 3 because I need to do a pickup. It's always been flexible in that way, which means if I choose to catch up later on, I can. It's completely my choice. So it's always been flexible, but obviously it's always been office-based. I think during the pandemic, obviously no one had a choice, so we all had to work from home. Fundamentally, I think the leadership did realize that productivity literally shot up quite massively during COVID. And the reason for that is obviously when you're in the office, there's also a view that in the office, the whole point of the office is that we want to build a culture, which means you stand by the coffee shop and have coffee, chat to someone. I'll see Naamua on the corridor and have a 5-minute, 10-minute chat. That's the vibe that we want in the office. So we noticed during COVID that productivity shot up. So that was one of the biggest things. What we also noticed is that obviously people joining new during the COVID didn't always feel the Tesco culture, because everything was virtual.
Yeah, of course.
Everything was virtual. So no one felt what it was like to really be in Tesco, especially in where you've got suppliers coming in, giving out freebies, things like that happening all over the place. That wasn't there. So there was a lot of learnings from COVID that I think leadership are now looking at and going, okay, how do we blend people having the flexibility to work from home when they can, but also still get that culture in. So people joining you and people who've joined during COVID can feel that this is the Tesco culture as well. That's the balance that we're trying to get to.
I think most organizations are on that journey, aren't they? Apart from the ones who obviously where people have to go in. There's some lines of work where you just have to physically be there, isn't it?
To be. Yeah.
But you've obviously stuck with it then. I'm guessing obviously it's a hybrid setup now. How many days do your team then, Aji, and the IT and software engineering team, how many days do you go in?
So the ask is 2 days a week minimum currently. We are changing in September to 3 days a week in the office. So it's 60-40. The idea is that we want to be together more than apart. So 3 days in the office and then 2 days for people to work from home. But we're also very conscious that a lot of people have been recruited during, to your point, Naamua, people that are living in Croydon, some people live in Bristol. I've got someone who lives in Birmingham, for example, that I know that commutes in. So we just have to just be conscious of how can we work through that as well.
Yeah, I think that does present leadership challenges when you've got teams dotted all over the place, doesn't it?
It does.
But if you stick to your core principles, as we evidently pointed out earlier on, I think then I'm sure you'll be fine. This episode was brought to you by Be Digital. Be Digital support leadership teams to optimize cost and get more out of technology investments. Be Digital and the team have unrivaled expertise with technology license management and data remediation and are therefore perfectly positioned to help prepare organizations for AI technology capability. And on the last point, Be Digital have just developed a cutting-edge AI readiness assessment, which provides tech leaders with a platform they need to make well-informed decisions about AI adoption strategy in 2024 and beyond. Go to bedigitaluk.com to find out more and get in touch. So look, I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions then, Aji. We haven't really gone in too much on your background. So obviously you told us you joined 15 years ago, Tesco. But can you tell us a little bit about your journey from joining the organization into a leadership role, and tell us a little bit about what your role is right now and what your team looks like right now?
I didn't start off as excited as Naamua was about technology because I grew up in Africa, so we didn't really have any computers. I think the first computer I saw was when I was in year 10, which was a massive MS-DOS thing, which is super exciting. But that was it really. We didn't have anything technology, but I've always wanted to do computing, to be honest. But if you're from an African background, your parents are very much about you being a lawyer or you being a doctor.
Traditional careers,
something medical. So I got forced to do biochemistry, and I did that for a year, and I thought, I absolutely hate hospitals. I don't know why I'm doing this, because I can't stand the smell of hospitals. So this is not going to work. So I stopped that, and then I moved into computer science. Then obviously when I got into Tesco, I joined as a software engineer, very similar to Naamua, but very specifically working on databases. So I was part of the team that built our original Tesco Direct website, which was shut down later on. Whilst I did like computer science, I was more interested in finding out and solving problems. That's what gets me up in the morning, is seeing a problem and working out how we fix it and working with teams. I always say my superpower is bringing people together to solve a problem. I love doing that. Sure. So I moved into product management, into what I am now, which is a head of product. It wasn't an easy journey, Gareth. I'm not going to lie. Like I said, I was one of about 4 women in the business, and also I was the only person of color. So it wasn't an easy journey. So I can't sit on a podcast and say it was smooth, because it actually wasn't.
Yeah.
What I think they don't teach you in uni is what corporate is like when you rock up. And it's not theoretical. There's a whole lot of politics. There's a whole lot of things on behaviors. There's culture clashes between people. Sure. All of that I massively experienced. I remember I had a manager who looked at me and said to me that you're never going to make it. You're never going to get to a leader role because you don't look like a leader. You don't talk like a leader. You've got a little bit of an accent. So you're never going to make it. And I'm the type of person that's motivated by negativity, which sounds really bad, but I am. Like, I get motivated. When people tell me I can do something, it gets me going. And that's what motivated me to try to look at leadership. But also, I didn't see leaders looking at people as individuals. I saw leaders looking at people as objects to do work. And I wanted to come in and my grandmother always used to say, if you're not on the table, you're on the menu. So if you want to make decisions, you have to be on the table. You have to be seated there. Yeah. So I wanted to get a seat at the table to be able to make those decisions for the people. And like I said, people is a thing for me. Yeah. And I wanted people to be seen as individuals, not as objects trying to deliver things.
Well, Aji, I have to say, I think you come across as very, very passionate and very, very smart and very, very determined. So I think if for me, it was probably inevitable that you were going to be a leader. So I don't know what that manager was talking about. but yeah, so can you just elaborate a bit more on your current role then, your team, and what is the purpose of your role?
Yeah, so I currently look after a team of about 24. Some people in the UK, some people in India, and some people in Central Europe. And they're they're product managers, so they work with engineering teams. So like Naamua, who then build systems and software. So I look after our portfolio that looks after everything to do with what we buy and sell. Mm-hmm. So how we capture product data, how we check the quality of our products before it gets to our stores, for example, how we go and audit our factories, our sites to make sure that we're not using kids for child labor, that kind of thing. Yeah. That's what my team looks after. So a massive portfolio. Got over hundreds of engineers in India who work with my product team to come up with ideas, come up with problems, whether it's legislative, whether it's innovative ideas. We use a lot of AI and ML to solve business problems, but mainly around how do we solve our business problems that we have across our commercial domain and our online spaces as well.
Just want to dig in a bit more on this graduate recruitment within Tesco. And maybe how it's changed. How has graduate recruitment changed in your time and maybe entry-level recruitment, I should say, not just graduate recruitment? How have you brought in talent who are at the beginning of their career, Aji, and how has that evolved over the period you have been there?
I think my observation of the graduate recruitment, I don't think the process in itself has changed massively, to be honest. I think they've refined it a bit since COVID, because I know they do a lot of video interviews now, which they didn't used to do at the time. It's a lot of face-to-face and group interviews. But my biggest observation of the change has been the people that we're hiring in as graduates. Yeah. Our graduates used to be very much like a assembly line, the same people all of the time. And these are people that if I looked at leaders, they were hiring people that were a little bit mini-me. Yeah. People that they could recognize, people that they could see themselves in, not looking anywhere over and above that.
Yeah, having tunnel vision. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Very tunnel vision of, I see myself in that person, so that's the person I'm going to hire. Over the years, I've seen a massive shift in the diversity of people that we're hiring across all areas of the business. And I never thought in my time at Tesco that I'll see it. And I've seen it so much in the last 2 years. And the amount of innovation, the amount of change that is brought into the business has been absolutely immense in my view anyway.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fundamental shift in recruitment, being very intentional about the type of people that they're hiring and not just the same type of people that, that look like them, think like them, come from the same schools as them, right? That's been probably my biggest notice in terms of a shift from a graduate perspective.
Okay. So it's more of a meritocracy now as opposed to a very specific type of person.
Very specific. It would have been the Cambridge, it would have been the Oxfords, it would have been, those are the universities that Tesco would target to go to.
Yeah, sure.
Whereby now I'm seeing such a diversity in terms of, I'm going to be very specific to look for female talent. I'm going to be very specific to look for people from an ethnic minority community because we know they'll bring something different. That wasn't there from a strategy perspective in terms of recruiting graduates. And I've seen a massive shift in that recently.
So is that shift something that is a result of some proactive activity? So did you legislate to get it like that? Or did it just naturally shift as the world, as the UK became more diverse? Was it a gradual, natural change, or did Tesco take action?
I think it's been very intentional. I don't think it was naturally the same. I think as leaders shifted in Tesco, and as events has occurred, I actually think the George Floyd incident has had a massive impact in Tesco shift. Huge. Because we started to create plans that were specific around Black people. We started to create plans that were specific for maybe women. And Tesco became a lot more intentional about its hiring.
Yeah.
Which I've never seen before. So it was an intentional strategy shift to say, we know as a business that hiring diverse candidates will grow our business. It will give us profits. And actually, from a culture perspective, it will move the dial. And then Tesco became a lot more intentional about the type of people that they were hiring.
Yeah. No, fantastic. That's really, really, I mean, so that's fantastic, though. I mean, so in terms of the organization right now, obviously the leadership level is a lot more diverse. The teams are a lot more diverse. Could you maybe talk us through why that's benefited Tesco's? What's the benefit of that, and what is, because it's a very positive change from the inside looking out. But what benefits has that brought to Tesco, do you think?
Oh, massive. I think the way we brought up and the way we think is very different. And even individuals within the same household don't always have the same thought, right?
Sure.
So
everyone's got a very different journey.
Everyone's got something to bring. And I think what I've found, especially in I've got a very diverse team. And what I've found is that no individual person always has the same thought or the same idea. And every time someone comes up with something, there's always someone with a different angle or a different view. And from a Tesco perspective, this has brought revenue. This has brought a culture shift. This has brought innovation, massive innovation around our thinking in terms of products that we sell in store, technology that we build everywhere.
Sure.
So I think overall, it's just made a massive difference in terms of not only people, but also even commercially as a business. We are a for-profit organization, and it's fundamentally shifted how we're ranging products now that are targeting a certain community. Mm-hmm. We're selling stuff that we wouldn't have sold before. I always use the example of Indomie noodles. I always talk to our commercial directors about, you really want to get Black people going into your shops. You want to sell Indomie, but you don't want to just sell any kind of noodles because they won't buy it.
Yeah,
so
sure.
If you don't have buyers that know that, how are you going to target your audience when a lot of the population in London, for example, is from ethnic minority groups?
Yeah, absolutely. Now that's fascinating. I can totally see why Tesco would massively benefit from having their leadership team and their products being created by people who better represent their customers. Do you see what I mean? As Tesco are selling to people of all backgrounds, of course they are. And I think that is now, I think the having your leadership team consisting of a more diverse group of people is surely going to improve the quality of the products and the quality of the service that you deliver to your customers. Yeah.
100%. We always talk about, if you came to Welling, and I'm sure this was a shock for you, Naamua, when you first came. If you rock up to Welling Garden City, which is our head office, not diverse at all. Massively shocking. But if you rocked up to a Tesco store, the people that we serve we're not representing the people within the head office. Right. And for me, it's that kind of diversity that you need to bring into the decision-making point to allow us to make better decisions for the people that we serve outside.
Can you give us your take on that, Naamua? Are you seeing, do you feel now that the organisation that you've joined are, obviously a very diverse leadership team, more women, more people from underrepresented backgrounds, does that make you as a graduate who's just joined the organization feel a little bit, that sky's the limit, that meritocracy is there? If you work hard and you hit your targets and your goals, that you will achieve whatever you want to achieve in this organization. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, no, it is definitely reassuring. In fact, I remember back when I was in my first team, so this was going back to around December 2022, and I was talking to one of the product management graduates, and he told me about a special someone, Aji.
Oh, wow.
And I heard about how she'd gone from software engineering to product management, and he was literally just singing her praises. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is so cool. There's someone like me, even though you did move to product management. It's so cool. but yeah, I think it's reassuring because, yeah, in school, when I was studying computer science, it's not common that girls will study computer science.
No.
So you do feel a bit different trying to go down that path. And my computer science teacher even kind of warned me before going to university that I will be probably the odd one out. And I did end up being one of the few different people in the course. Going into the tech industry, I was a little bit nervous because I thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to be treated, because it's not about me just being different, coming from a different background, but it's very visible that I don't look like other engineers that I'm working with. But it doesn't hold me back. It doesn't stop me. And of course,
sure.
all companies still have a way to go to be more and more diverse.
Yeah.
And everyone's making that progress. But I'm relieved that I don't feel like I'm stuck at this level just because I am a Black girl in tech.
Yeah. I think it is, the numbers are still very poor, aren't they, in terms of women in technology? And I don't know the numbers in terms of people from underrepresented groups and diverse backgrounds, but certainly the gender split in the technology sector is still, I read the other day, is 26% in the UK. Now, I don't know how robust those numbers are. I think it was a HR magazine who came up with that, but it's still not great. It should be 50-50. There's no justifiable, logical reason why there are not more women in the sector, apart from, I interviewed the EMEA general manager of Google Cloud Security. She was talking about how when she was young, growing up in Spain, she was expected to go into a traditional female-based vocation. And I don't think the people who are pushing those stereotypes have sinister intentions. It's just a cultural thing. I mean, and that's what we need to change. I don't think anyone's out there going, right, women can't work in these careers. No one's doing that. I think it's just the way we act. We have to broaden our minds. I've got two daughters. I'd love them to work in the technology sector. I would love them to be, looked up to like Aji is as an inspirational person who's blazing a trail, But it's but yeah, I don't know if these perceptions are going to change. Do you think we're making progress, Aji? It seems like you are in Tesco, but generally, are we making progress as a society?
Society. Yeah, I think it's two things. And I'm always really honest about the fact that it's not just the companies as well, it's also our community. And please tell me if I'm being wrong, Naamua. It was yes. I know if I went to someone from my background, my community, and I said to them, would your son or daughter want to come and work at Tesco? The first thing they'll say to me is, I don't want them to work in a store. Because in their minds, Tesco's the store. If I went to them and said, I want your daughter to work at Facebook or Google, they'll be jumping up and down the chairs because they'll be super excited. In their minds, those are tech companies. So also I think two things. I think we need to, as a community, we need to get better at understanding that retail companies are as high tech as you would have your Googles or your Metas, for example, right? That's for us to do. And I think Naamua does an incredible job. She runs this work experience program. Amazing. Where it's schools coming into Tesco, year 10s, year 11s, and year 12s to actually see for a whole week what it's like to work in the industry. And actually, for people coming from our background, when they come in and see that, it gives them something to aim for. It gives them a vision of a dream of something that they could be. And normally, all they think about Tesco is I need to work and get a packet of crisps and a prime drink or whatever. That's it. They see it as a store. So those initiatives that Naamua does would really help people to understand a little bit more about what we offer. That's one part. The second part is companies need to do better at reaching out to universities in those communities. Not all people from a Black background would go to Cambridge or Oxford, minimal. But you've got a lot of really smart kids very resilient, really hardworking, that go to universities that Tesco may not deem, the top-notch universities, right? I started at Middlesex University because I came here as an immigrant. That's what I could afford. I had to pay for my own uni fees, right? It didn't make me any less smarter than anybody who went to Oxford or Cambridge. I just didn't have the right opportunities then.
Sure.
So how can we go to those universities? How can we go to those schools, similar to what Naamua was bringing, and pull those kids in very early, do internships, work experience in, to show them what we offer?
Yeah.
Then that, for me, those two combined would be a nice balance.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, actually, I do have two examples based on the work experience placements that we've been running. So for context, I'm leading a sort of committee of technology colleagues that run week-long work experience placements for students between the ages of 14 to 18 years old. Mm-hmm. So we bring them into Tesco Technology for the week, and we try and expose them to a variety of job roles, because a lot of the time the assumption is, if I'm working in tech, I have to be a software engineer. And that can be quite off-putting. Mm-hmm. But also, as Aji was saying, if you hear Tesco, you don't think Tesco Technology. You don't assume that's a thing. You think of maybe like tills, but you don't consider all the other things that we could possibly be doing. So one of the students, I asked her at the end of the week, I said, what did you think of your placement? What were your expectations versus like the reality and what you know? And she said, in school, when like her teacher explained to her class that she was going to be doing her work experience at Tesco, apparently they all laughed at her because they assumed that she was just going to be sitting in a call center. Yeah. Meanwhile, she spent the whole week learning so much about all the different operations and the tech teams that come together to build this big operation where we feed the nation.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time when you're thinking of companies that aren't traditionally considered the tech companies, you're not going to go down that route because you think, oh, well, why would I even apply? Because surely they're not offering opportunities for me.
Yeah,
and
sure.
The second example is, again, a similar thing with a different work experience student. I was kind of asking to understand if he'd be interested in coming back to Tesco Technology. And again, it was the same thing of he didn't realize that Tesco had this big department of so many colleagues. And coming into it, he thought, well, I'll probably learn a bit about tech, but I'm probably just going to end up going to one of the FANG companies, and FANG being Facebook, Amazon, I never remember all the letters, Netflix, Google. I think there's another one in there, Apple. So I think a lot of students, even if they are really interested in tech, they'll immediately go down that route and think, okay, I have to go for the big companies, and not consider that technology is everywhere today.
Of course, every company is a tech company now, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, there's so many ways to work in tech in different departments or like different industries. So we're in retail, but we're still working in tech.
Yeah. Brilliant. I want to talk about the gap between the education or academia, and industry. Okay. Naamua is clearly probably someone who's not done too bad in terms of that, bridging that gap, and is a high performer. But what about graduates generally, Aji? Are you seeing people leaving academia, joining Tesco, and they're ready to go? Are they getting prepared? Or is this a real, uphill struggle to get them into the right mentality and the way of working, and the drive and the determination that you need to succeed in the corporate or the business world? What are you seeing with that?
I've seen some graduates who come in genuinely, because I've had a lot of graduates pass through my team, and I've seen some come in and just literally get it, and they come in and they just get on.
Yeah.
Like Naamua was a superstar. And I've seen some graduates who genuinely join and they really struggle, because what you learn in uni is very theoretical. And I think this is something that needs to change. They genuinely don't tell you about everything else that's included. You're coming into a workplace where you have to work with people. You're working with people from different backgrounds, different thinking. There's nothing that teaches you that at uni.
Yeah.
And this is why I think people that do work experience or internships maybe have a little bit of an edge, because they've got at least seen a little bit of a snippet of what it's like.
Sure.
But where I see them struggle isn't technically that they're not smart. They are very smart. Where I see them struggle is their softer skills around leadership.
That makes sense. How
you collaborate with people, how you influence, right? And how you do all of that still being your authentic self. They
I was just thinking
struggle.
that. Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Massively struggle.
Yeah. A lot of them feel like they've got to play a role and put on a facade and be someone else.
Yeah, and they copy. They see Naamua doing this, oh, maybe I'll do that as well. Or they see Aji doing that and, oh, I'll try that as well. When actually, I always say to people, if it's not your A game and you want to try, if Naamua was fantastic at collaborating and you're that's not you. But then you want to compete no more at doing that, you're 100% going to fall flat.
Yeah.
What you need to do is identify what your strengths are. And then how do you leverage those strengths to heighten it so that you're fantastic at what you're good at? And Naamua can be fantastic at what she's good at.
Yeah.
And you can both win. I see them struggling a little bit when they first come in.
I think that's a confidence thing, isn't it? A lot of the time, you
Big
feel
time.
like you're not good enough, so you need to try and be like somebody else, or you need to act in a certain way to fit in with the people around you. And this kind of lends in to the importance of role models, doesn't it? But I think ultimately, you just need to be Naamua. You just need to be yourself because that brings something to the table. But you need to be confident enough to believe that. I think that's the key thing, isn't it? And that's a cultural thing. You just need to have that culture, I suppose. But
and it's also it's also a female thing as well, Gareth. Weirdly enough, it's a very female thing. I always say that we raise our boys to be very brave, and we raise our girls to try and be perfect. And you can't be perfect in a corporate world. Sure. So if girls see a job description, they want to tick every single box on that. It has to be 100% right before they apply.
Yeah, of course.
So I think even as parents, we need to do better at raising our girls to be a bit braver, to take risk, and to be a bit, because that's what builds the confidence really.
Yeah.
And to know that they can learn, they're going to fail, they're going to, fall, get up and all of that. I think there's an element of gender in it as well. I
think it is a bit of a British thing as well, in that we do tend, and it is the education system, I think, in Britain. I'm not sure about the rest of Europe, but I'm thinking about it in comparison to America, where it's like a badge of honor if you failed at something, because it's like this mentality that, you got to fail forward. If you set up a business and it's gone, and failed entrepreneur, you're on your 6th business. It's like, you brag about it. In Britain, it's like, we can't fail once because it's a disaster, because my, family will find out. And it's just this fear. It's this fear of failure, I think.
Fear. Yeah. It's worse in Africa, Gareth. They would grade you. So at the end of the term, it's who's come first, second, third, all the way to 45th in the class.
Yeah.
And from an African perspective, you coming last is like they would bury you. They would it's not a thing.
Yeah.
So there's no concept of people can fail and they can, like Americans, to your point.
Sure.
There's no concept of that at all. So everything has to be perfect.
So can I move on to AI? Because I really want to talk about technology innovation, guys, because it's obviously probably one of the most profound, or maybe one of the most exciting shifts in technology and technology capability for businesses in quite a long time. The last 2 years, we've all been quite blown away by ChatGPT, for example, but it hasn't really infiltrated and affected businesses too much yet. How has Tesco benefited from AI, large language models and automation over the last 2 years? Is it something you've embraced? Is it something you're not really there yet? Where are you at in your AI journey?
So I have a team specifically just dedicated at AI and ML and looking at intelligence. How can we use intelligence to allow us to make better decisions? So may not be fancy examples that I'll give, but simple examples. For example, in retail, I don't know if you've noticed, Gareth, or maybe you know how ever so often the low pack butter is shrinking, as an example. Mm-hmm. Every time you go to the shop, it's gone down from 500 mil to 350 mil. So we're using different AI models, LLM being most recent, we're using to look at how can we identify when a product's change, and how can we make sure from a customer price point, we're not charging them anymore for that product because it's gone down in size, and how do we flag that up to our commercial teams making the decisions with the suppliers to say, why are you reducing the price of low pack, even though the cost price you're charging before it is still the same? Another example is the Quality Street chocolate. Yeah. Years ago, the Quality Street top was this big. Now it's that big, but that's where we're using AI to identify when actually suppliers are being a little bit cheeky and reducing the sizes of stuff. We're also looking at things like automatic content generation. So obviously Tesco uses a lot of content on descriptions, titles and stuff like that. How do we remove the need of, and this is not saying that humans wouldn't be needed for it, but how do we reduce the load on them by automatically generating content using LLM models and getting them to come in and just validate that whatever the machines come up with looks right. And there's a lot of innovation happening in our labs team. I know they're doing a whole lot more using a lot of AI, but it's just some examples that we use in my space that we're looking at around how can we help customers shop better online by, identifying, making sure they've got the right descriptions, ensuring our search engines are optimized with better attributes using AI models, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Can I ask you, Naamua, in terms of AI generally, and it doesn't have to be within Tesco, but just AI generally, what are you most excited about as a software engineer?
I think AI is definitely growing and it's being incorporated in so many different aspects of life now, which I think is really cool because, it will make our lives so much more easier. Pulling in like a Tesco example, I don't know if you're familiar with our Tesco Get Go stores.
Is that the one you don't have any people working there? You just
just
walk out and it charges you because it recognizes you or something?
So that's where that was developed by our innovation team, our Tesco Labs team.
How many stores you got doing that now?
Yeah, they've got it in a few stores in London and they've got it in our main office as well in Welwyn Garden City.
I think we launched one in Birmingham as well. I'm not too sure.
It must be so weird. Just going out, picking something up and walking out. It's just like, but it's quite fun.
So fast.
It's really fast.
I knew Amazon were doing it, but I didn't know. I'd heard Tesco were doing it, but I've never seen a store.
No. So it's really easy to go and grab food now. Yeah, as Aji said, we have one on campus. So walking in, scanning the QR code, and then just picking up everything and walking out. And it's so quick, so fast. And I love it. I love it so much. Yeah. But yeah.
Is it facial recognition or is it some sort of scanning thing you walk? I don't know how it works. Sorry.
It's tied to your club card and we've got some barriers. So your club card will generate like a QR code on your phone that you can scan in through to get through the barriers. And we've got loads of like cameras dotted about in the ceiling. So it's using computer vision to be able to track each individual, and the shelves themselves are weighted so that when you pick up something, it's the combination of we know who's picked it up and we know what you picked up based on the weight. And we've also got, so that's for just walking in and out. But we also have this hybrid version. So you can still pay at a till. So when you walk up to the till, it says something like, let's see what's in your basket. And then it all just pops up on the till. So you don't need to scan a single thing.
That's incredible.
And it's so accurate. I tried it with 2 croissants. I thought it wouldn't know I've got 2 croissants in the back.
Yeah.
But it does know you've got 2 croissants. It's shockingly accurate. It's,
You know, like shoplifting, probably a big problem at the moment in most places. How do you stop it in a place like that then? You know what I mean? Because I'm sure you can see it and everything is on camera. But if someone just walks in, doesn't care and takes stuff and leaves, are there any staff there to get alerted by that and to like stop them? Or how do you deal with that?
So we have one in Holborn in central London. They've done a slightly different approach to what we have on campus where everyone walks through the barriers and you have to scan either a physical receipt or your club card to get out. So there's no way of leaving without like showing signs of purchase.
Okay. Well, that completely solves the problem then.
Yeah, in our technology, they've got a team called the Store Platform Team, and they have a platform called Computer Vision, to Naamua's point, massive AI innovation. And they do a lot of work on theft and making sure, especially on the self-scan tills, that what you're putting in weight-wise scans. And they've got cameras everywhere, literally. So they've got some really interesting videos where they'll show you how the camera can pick up people trying to steal stuff across the stores. But there's a lot of technical work and AI that goes into that as well.
No, I can imagine. No, that's incredible. I mean, that's clearly the future, isn't it? But that is a really good segue into jobs displacement, okay? And probably not going to affect you guys, but I think task displacement will. I think tasks will be automated, that you will be intrinsic parts of your jobs, I'm sure, at some point. But the reason this is the sort of spin I want to put on this question is in terms of graduate recruitment and entry level recruitment, you often give, junior members of staff who join the organization more, lower level tasks to get on with in order to learn the ropes. Yeah. To sort of learn how the business works and stuff like that. So the question is, do you think automation and AI is going to have a detrimental effect? Is going to decrease the amount of graduates that you are potentially going to hire? Or do you think it's going to increase? Or do you think it's going to evolve the type of skills that you look for in graduates at all?
It's going to change the type of hiring that we do in terms of the skill sets that we look for. But I don't think necessarily, at the moment anyway, it's going to reduce the number of people. So I know a lot of people are worried about the jobs. I don't think it's about that you lose your job. I think it will evolve the type of people that we need, which is why I always encourage my teams around learning to think about, look ahead and think, what skill set do I need to have to allow me to stay in role?
Sure.
So AI product managers, for example, people learning Python as an example, is going to grow because someone needs to build these AI models. It doesn't build itself. So as individuals, what we need to think about is how do we upskill ourselves and how do we learn to get ready for the future.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think it's going to be a displacement. It will only be a displacement of jobs if you're not willing to
adapt,
grow, and if you're not willing to adapt.
Yeah,
that's where my head's at with it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think the people who are able to utilize these new tools have got such an advantage over everyone else now, haven't they? In most lines of work. Do you know what I mean? Like, I use ChatGPT all the time. I never get it to do work for me and then just use that content. I use it as a research tool to format things. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, and there's integrations, like to just as a research tool or whatever, to contextualize things, to come up with new ideas. But I wanted to move it on to you, Naamua, because there was an interesting video that went out, and it was quite well shared on social media and things, from the founder or maybe the CEO of NVIDIA, one of the sort of chip companies behind AI. But he was saying that software engineering is going to be massively disrupted by AI because everyone is going to have software engineering capability through simple prompts and stuff like that, you know? I don't think it'll kill software engineering ever, because who the hell is going to build the models? But you know what I mean? It clearly is going to have an enormous impact on software engineering as a vocation. What do you think? Naamua?
So I'm aware that you can just like copy and paste a snippet of code in and be like, what does this do? And it will tell you. And the alternative is also, you can give a prompt and it will write some code for you. So it definitely has capabilities of being able to kind of maybe not build the whole application, but it can definitely aid software developers. And if this keeps like improving, maybe it's got the capability to take it a lot further and maybe not take our jobs completely. But I think all in all, that there is that risk. But I think when it comes to, for example, grad recruitment, it just means we have to be a little bit more like on our toes. It's important to make sure that you double check, or like maybe doing like live coding assessments, because you want to make sure that you know that your candidates actually do know what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, we do want to make sure that our code is of good quality and it's definitely doing what we want it to do. And it's not just being written by a third-party source that we haven't verified or cross-checked. But also, other than that, when you think about things that are a bit more like front-end related, so front-end being like websites and things, there's a whole lot of things that I don't know if AI can do. For example, talking about accessibility. So we do still need those different minds to be able to be like, hey, we can't actually navigate through this page by pressing like tab or like the arrow keys or using voice control. I don't know if AI is capable of doing that. I mean, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's something that you can do for that.
Yeah, it's learning. But I think to your point, you're right, Naamua, it does need people in. Because if I think about the automated voice that uses AI, imagine the amount of accents that we've got across the UK. I know I struggle when it says, did you say that? And I did not even go close to it, right? So we need people to be able to code it in a way that it knows that it's not linear, that everything's going to be different. You've got people from Croydon, people from Wales, people from... So how can we adapt to those accents? That is not something that AI can do automatically.
Your role will probably change, Naamua, through your career if you decide to stay hands-on as an engineer. But I don't think the output will change that much. And what I mean is that you may not need to write code anymore, but you'll still be creating applications. You'll just be doing it in a different way. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And anyone can, I think I stole this off someone else, but anyone can put a bit of cement on a brick and lay a brick, but not everyone can build a house. Do you see what I mean? Because there's other considerations around building a house. You know what I mean? So you may not be doing the granular elements of software engineering in a couple of years, but you'll be working on bigger problems than that, like more exciting problems. You know, what do people actually want? You know, so it'll probably just be a little bit more user experience chucked in and SEO or whatever, you know, other things. You know what I mean? So I think it'll be exciting for software engineers. You'll just have more comprehensive remits, I suppose. So I just want to finish on these. Then I've got a couple of things. So Naamua, if we could start with you, if you were giving some advice now to a graduate who's leaving university this year, in terms of your journey, what advice would you give to graduates right now?
I would say don't limit your options. And also, you don't need to know everything. I think coming into the tech industry, I was like, oh no, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. A lot of it is learning on the job and learning together. So I think having that sort of mindset is the growth mindset, but like understanding that it's okay if you have gaps in your knowledge, because you'll just figure out together as a team.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. Embrace and don't be scared to make mistakes, because that's analysis paralysis, they call it, don't they? I mean, if you overanalyze things, then you'll probably succumb to them, you know. But Aji, can I ask you a bit more of a pointed question? I want you to look back at the beginning of your career, okay? And the question is, what advice would you give to your pre-Tesco self?
Main advice for me is be really clear on what you like, and more importantly, what you don't like. And then choose a career that you don't, so it's not hard work. I love my job. It doesn't feel like a job, right?
Mm.
So be really clear on what you like, but also more importantly, be brave. I just want to really, if I was talking to 18-year-old girls, I'll be saying to them, be brave.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect. None of us are. We're all work in progress. Be brave, take risk, and you definitely reap the rewards if you do.
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
Fantastic. Is there a piece of content that you guys have been inspired by recently that you could recommend to the listeners?
Yeah, so How Women Rise is a wonderful recommendation I always give to people. It's one of the most interesting books that I've ever read. Very practical around the workplace and what you need to do to stay in the game. Now, I'm not saying this is a game, but it gives practical advice of what actual workplaces are like. So I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah. So that's by Sally Helgeson, How Women Rise. Yeah.
That's the one, How Women Rise. Would completely recommend that book.
Perfect.
To anybody wanting to get into the workplace. And there's a really old book that I've read years ago. I don't think it's very modern nowadays, but it's been evolving over the years. It's called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. It's a really old book. Really old book.
Yeah, but if it's a good book, I mean, you know, the lessons normally last, don't they?
Yeah, and some of the references they give there are a little bit old school, but the idea of it is it's just encouraging people to be a little bit braver. Hence the word Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office.
Yeah.
It's about, sometimes we want to be people pleasers. We just want to keep everybody happy. And actually in the corporate world, it does not always work like that. So it's just advice on how you can work in the corporate world. So those two would be my recommendations.
That is brilliant. Yeah, Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And that is by Lois Frankel. And we'll put both of those books on my daughter's called Lois, actually. You don't see many Loises around. But we'll put that on the show notes. And that's fantastic. Guys, thank you so much. I've actually learned a lot from this conversation and I actually feel inspired. So I think, thank you. Keep up the good work. Can I just ask you, where can people find you and anything in terms of coding for girls, Naamua, if there's anything you can mention there so people can reach out to some of the organizations you've benefited from in your journey?
Yeah, so I'd promote Next Tech Girls. Next Tech Girls is that organization that focuses on helping those who are typically underrepresented in tech, and they help people find work experience placements. So that definitely is a good way in to be able to be exposed to so many companies that you wouldn't know about.
Yeah, so Black Valley is a program that this young man created to help people of color get into work. So it looks at people in engineering, tech, product, UX design, and they basically reach out to people in industry like myself who offer to be mentors as part of that program. For anybody wanting to get into tech and not sure how to do it. And we spend, I think it's probably about 6 months with them to go through what do they need? How can we help them be ready for those tech interviews and stuff like that? So yeah, I would recommend if people want to register, it's absolutely free. And then you've got people from massively top organizations that volunteer to be mentors to people from ethnic minority groups.
Fantastic. We'll put both of those on the show notes. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I know you're really busy, so we appreciate you talking to us.
Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you so much, Gareth. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Wow, where do I start with this one? We created this episode to primarily discuss the graduate journey and the impact of technology innovation on graduate recruitment in the coming years, in light of things like automation and the innovation around AI. And I believe we did do that, and it was fantastic. However, I think the conversation around diversity was even more compelling. Both of these ladies speak very well and opened my eyes to a number of things. But Aji was absolutely right. We are shaped by our experience and our perception. Many people find it difficult to think objectively beyond their unique experience. And that is something which is a learning curve for most of us. So that was a really important point for me. And so I don't want to sort of draw attention just to one specific point, though. I think what is worth drawing attention to here is the sentiment and the theme of what we were talking about. Tesco's customer base is by default highly diverse. And if you are going to sell more products and services to that customer base, you have to have a workforce, and especially a leadership team that reflects that customer base in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, and also in terms of neurodiversity as well. It appears that Tesco are leading the way in this respect and are reaping the benefit, which is great to see. And that is what really stood out for me. Thank you so much for joining us. Great guests, great questions, great content. Thank you so much for listening. Please give us a like or subscribe. That would be even better, or a review. If you can engage in any way, it really helps us. Thank you so much for listening. This episode was brought to you by Be Digital. Be Digital support leadership teams to optimize cost and get more out of technology investments. Be Digital and the team have unrivaled expertise with technology license management and data remediation, and are therefore perfectly positioned to help prepare organizations for AI technology capability. And on the last point, Be Digital have just developed a cutting-edge AI readiness assessment, which provides tech leaders with a platform they need to make well-informed decisions about AI adoption strategy in 2024 and beyond. Go to Be Digital UK to find out more and get in touch.